A very good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on MTV and Shakti TV. I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara.
A very good evening. I'm Mahina Bongso. We start off with a look at your headlines.
All-party meeting on the Geneva resolution held under the auspices of the President. Court permits to investigate the MV Mahanura belonging to Avantgarde under the Money Laundering Act. Minister Patali comments on political consensus. Total earnings from exports in August 2015 reflects a decline of 19.5%.
In your top story this evening, the all-party representative meeting was held at the Presidential Secretariat this evening under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena.
Group including Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Opposition Leader R. Sambandhan, party leaders and representatives attended the meeting. Our correspondent stated that 3 members, including the General Secretaries of parties, were permitted to attend the meeting.
ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදීව නිදහස්ව මානව හිමිකම් සහ මූලික අයිතිවාසිකම් ජනතාවගේ ආරක්ෂා කරමින්
We mainly expect your views and suggestions on how we should proceed further in relation to these recommendations while safeguarding the human rights and fundamental rights of the people. If there are suggestions that this all-party representative meeting should be convened again, these suggestions could be open for dialogue. Therefore, we are always open to your ideas if this committee should convene again once or even more. If you are open to the idea of presenting your suggestions in writing, we kindly request that you take measures to send these suggestions in writing within the next 2 weeks. So according to your suggestions, we can also appoint a few subcommittees to look into its content.
තමුන්නාන්සලා යෝජනා කරනවා නම් තමුන්නාන්සලාගේ අදහස් අනුව එක් විෂයන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කරුණු සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ සර්වපාක්ෂික සමුළුවේ උප කොමිටු අනු කමිටුත් කීපයක් පත් කරන්න පුළුවන්.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party points out that the all-party meeting will pave the way for party leaders to come to a correct stand over the resolution adopted in Geneva. Addressing a media briefing today, the party noted that the time has come for everyone to work for the country and cast aside all differences.
This is the time when all political parties should stand together against racism in the country. Whatever decision the Sri Lanka Freedom Party takes, it takes for the benefit of the country. No matter what political disadvantage we may face, we will not let the country fall to the hands of racism. That is affirmative. Also speaking at the media briefing, Minister Faiza Mustafa said that due to the absence of good governance in the country over the past few years, several countries distanced themselves from Sri Lanka. We as a country should accept certain concepts such as media freedom, minority rights and the law and should be implemented accordingly. But it wasn't just the war that led to the adoption of the resolution. There were several new additions to it. There were shortcomings in our administrative sector. So if Maithripala Sirisena did not become president, the resolution which was adopted would have been more of a serious nature. A resolution of this nature, however, was adopted due to the measures taken by the government of President Sirisena.
Welcome back to the news. The debate on the resolution adopted by the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva recently was taken up in Parliament today.
The agreement signed with Ban Ki-moon clearly stated that this investigation was for the final stages of the conflict. It was the previous government that appointed committees to conduct these investigations. We make promises to the international community and appoint commissions, and these commissions submit reports. But these reports don't come out of the president's drawer for 9 years. There was a report compiled by Maxwell Parnagama, but it was never presented. But we tabled it. The people of this country have the right to know about this. Sometimes, if you just take some time to study these reports, you will find that these reports contain more grave recommendations than the recommendations made in Geneva. Certain Tamil factions fought a war with this country's lawful armed forces. The war was ended, and after ending it, we put up media charades. I thought of more serious consequences to this. Why? Because the CNN and BBC showed how our people were celebrating with milk rice, dancing, eating cow, and how our president arrives, eats cow, and goes to the next function. These were all media charades. Meanwhile, international media was airing footage of the north, where skinny children who have suffered during the war are waiting in line at orphanages with a plate in their hands just for a piece of bread. So who put that impression upon the world? If we clear the internal issues that we had in our country, we should solve these issues in a respectable way. Nelson Mandela was not a leader like this. He's what you call an international leader. Because what did he say? He said, don't celebrate revenge. That is what he called diplomatic leadership. But what did we do? If we continue what Mahinda Rajapaksa started, that is wrong. So at least now, let's rectify those mistakes, and no matter what resolution has been passed and what co-sponsorship has been made, we can work according to the laws of our country. Today there are still soldiers who call on Mahanayakas. These disabled soldiers tell these Mahanayakas that they have no answers to their sorrows. What the Rajapaksa regime did was that they sold tickets at army camps and stage shows, motorbike shows and stage car races. This government is doing the same thing. Now every soldier is selling tickets for 2,500 rupees, and if they fail to make any sales, that money will be deducted from their wages. The initial process on implementing law on war crimes and genocide came into effect after the Second World War. We all know the process created at the Nuremberg War Tribunal and the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal. Here, 4 principles based on the Soviet Union, French law and the Anglo-Action law was agreed upon. The first principle was on who initiated the mass conspiracy and invasion. The second was to file legal cases against those who carried out crimes against peace and who acted against peace based on a recommendation by the Soviet Union. The third was, if war crimes, genocide, mass abductions and acts against war prisoners were committed, measures were taken against these crimes. Moreover, a decision was made to take measures against crimes against humanity. So it was based on these 4 principles that the Nuremberg War Tribunal and the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal heard these cases, faced around the world and enacted these laws. So when comparing these 4 principles, it is quite evident that the Sri Lankan government nor the Sri Lankan security units have implemented a process such as this. If there were cases where an act against the state, against democracy, mass conspiracies or invasion, these were committed by the LTTE, not the Sri Lankan Armed Forces. What should we as a country do to overcome these challenges the country is facing? This political consensus is of utmost importance for the process of revealing the truth as to what actually happened, who carried out these killings, how were they carried out and who assisted in them. And if there are certain crimes committed, a special court should be established in accordance with the constitution of the country. It is important that we reiterate that these crimes should be heard in accordance with the Sri Lankan judicial system. As far as I believe, it is because we did not implement the recommendations of the 2009 resolution, that the resolutions which were tabled in 2012, 2013 and 2014 were adopted at the UNHRC in Geneva. But now we have received another opportunity, and like I said before, we must make maximum use of this opportunity. Some wise MPs here try to show that it was because of the weaknesses of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and his government that this problem has aggravated to this. There was no agreement between Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the Foreign Ministry. It was merely a joint statement. I will read the Sinhalese translation of this. The Secretary General states the importance of a process to ensure international human rights and humanitarian law and accountability of human rights violations, and the required measures should be taken on the sorrows of these victims. This is why several commission reports were compiled. Whether these sufferings were true and were there so many incidents. These were the essential measures. Nowhere in this statement does it say that an agreement has been signed to conduct a hybrid or domestic investigation and surrender the security forces. So this operation of handing over this country is being carried out based on a lie. I listened to all these statements and I will not tell anyone that what they said was wrong. Either they are not fully aware of this resolution or have not read the entire document, or they do not want to table it. This MP is saying that this was not implemented according to the laws of the country. It clearly states that it is imperative to get the certification of the judiciary in Sri Lanka.
ඇතුළු ශ්‍රී ලංකා අධිකරණ යාන්ත්‍රණයක බලය යටතේ බව මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් තවදුරටත් වැදගත් වන බවට සාතික කිරීමට කැමැත්තෙමි.
During the debate in Parliament today, parliamentarians from the ruling party were continuously interrupted by the opposition. A tense situation arose when Minister Wijayadas Rajapaksa was interrupted by MP Dinesh Gunawardena.
During the Cold War, the US leveled Europe to the ground. They then obtained a loan. That is why the EU was formed. Honorable parliamentarian, the students seated at the balcony here are aware of that. Although it took 60 years for you to find that out, the students here know what happened. Ask them if you don't understand. Honorable Speaker, he may scream at the top of his voice, but he cannot hide what he does not know, but merely making noise. It is only his foolishness that resonates from his noise. It shows his shallowness. When Dinesh Gunawardena compiled this joint statement, he was the chief government whip. Were you blind? Did you not have a brain? Did you not have a heart?
ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයේ ප්‍රධාන සංවිධායක ඇස් තිබුණේ නැද්ද? මොළේ තිබුණේ නැද්ද? හදවත තිබුණේ නැද්ද? මෙන්න කැවිලා බොරලු කොට දැන් ඉන්නේ කැනහිල්ලෝ දැන් බොරලු කොට සිංහල නැහැ.
Certain opposition party parliamentarians charged that sufficient times had not been allocated for the opposition to express its views at today's debate. The opposition stated that not only was there a problem in the amount of time that was allocated, but also a problem in the order of speakers. It is Vimal Veerawangsa who will be speaking from the opposition. Why has the 2 rounds for him to speak being denied? We do not agree with this as party leaders.
No, wait! I have nothing to do with you. I'm only speaking to the... No, wait! Nah!
Minister Mangala, please wait. Let us resolve this. Please sit down. If you have a problem, then please speak about it at the party leaders' meeting. Proceedings were adjourned for 10 minutes as MP Dinesh Gunawardena took the mace during the debate.
මට දීලා දෙන්න ලයිස්තුව සබල් ගන්න මම විනාඩි 10කට සභා ගරු පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විනාඩි 10කට කල් තබනවා.
However, once proceedings were commenced, MP Dinesh Gunawardena expressed his disappointment over the incident.
දිනේෂ් ගුණවර්ධන ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා
සභාපතිතුමනි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඇතිවුණු අනවබෝධයෙන්
Honorable Chairman, this commotion occurred due to the misunderstanding about the next speaker. Therefore, on behalf of the opposition, I would like to express my regret.
විපක්ෂය වෙනුවෙන් මම කනගාටුව ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමතියි.
Also speaking in Parliament, Minister of Rehabilitation, Resettlement and Hindu Religious Affairs D.M. Swaminathan expressed the following views.
The independence and integrity of the key institutions such as the Attorney General's Department, the Human Rights Commission remain compromised. And therefore, I think the government, by the 19th Amendment, has taken steps today to see that there is an independence of judiciary, independence of the Human Rights Commission, and there has been the Parliamentary Council is making those appointments and not the executive power, the President, these appointments, which is a fundamental matter where we can now retrieve ourselves from the failure of this entire society. The security forces, police and intelligence services have enjoyed near total impunity, had not undergone any significant downsizing or reform since the armed conflict.
Take a look at a story that we are following very closely here at Newsfirst. Court granted permission to conduct investigations into the MV Mahanura vessel of Avant-Garde, which was found anchored at the Galle Harbour in January this year under the Money Laundering Act. Galle Magistrate Nilupuli Lankapura granted permission following a request made by the Criminal Investigations Department. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe elaborated on the Avant-Garde deal in Parliament yesterday.
මෙම පාවෙන අවිගබඩාව ජාත්‍යන්තර මූදේ පවත්ගෙන යාම ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යවරය විසින්
In the letter dated the 18th September 2012, the then Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, DMD Jayaratna, informed the chairman of Avant-Garde that the Ministry of Defence had permitted to operate the floating armoury in international waters. However, the Ministry of Defence is not in possession of the document that was given to anchor the floating armoury at the Galle Harbour. The only permit for the weapons were from the countries the weapons were issued from, and the accepting and issuing of those weapons are to be done under the supervision of the Sri Lanka Navy. The Ministry of Defence has not granted permission to issue any of the weapons from the floating armoury. In addition, the Ministry of Defence is not in the possession of the documents which detail the weapons nor the country of origin. The Attorney General has not advised to withdraw the case nor to conclude the investigations. As clear instructions were provided to continue with the investigation, the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption will continue with the investigations over bribery allegations, while the police will continue with the investigations under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act No. 5 of 2006. Therefore, there is no requirement for another external investigation in this regard.
State Counsel Shanil Kularatne, appearing on behalf of the CID, informed court that there was no sufficient evidence to file action against Avantgarde in terms of Prevention of Terrorism Act, Explosive Ordinance and Firearms Ordinance. The attorney at law, appearing on behalf of the Avantgarde Security Services Private Limited, requested court to terminate proceedings. However, the State Counsel representing the Attorney General objected to this application and stated that investigations are being carried out under the Money Laundering Act. The magistrate, after considering the submissions made by both parties, ordered for further investigations to be carried out over Avantgarde under the Money Laundering Act and for further reports to be submitted on the 25th of February next year. Views were also expressed at the Cabinet media briefing today.
When speaking of Avantgarde, it was said that there was an attempt to bribe you over the matter. However, yesterday the Prime Minister said that no one was influenced over the matter. The Prime Minister only spoke of the AG's department. Avantgarde was one of the major topics on the election stage during the general elections. There were views over illegal arms trade. Views are still being expressed. Today at the Galle Court, the CID requested for a case to be made under the Money Laundering Act against the Mahanura vessel. They requested for permission. It is a part of it. The President is conducting a separate investigation over the issuing of weapons and the process that was followed. The former Additional Secretary under Gotabaya Rajapaksa had provided evidence that there were only 88 weapons that were given. However, 3,000 plus weapons have been given. Under the directives of the President, the security forces are conducting a separate investigation. On the other hand, money had been highlighted. A separate monetary investigation is taking place over the depositing of money used by them. Is Rakna Arakshaka Lanka engaged in international business? There is no issue over Rakna Arakshaka Lanka because it is owned by the Ministry of Defence. Does it mean that the agreement with Avantgarde has been terminated? The agreement has not been terminated. Action needs to be taken over the allegations made against them.
Questions were raised over Avantgarde at a press conference convened by a collective of civil organizations.
Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Defence in a statement had said that Avantgarde had been provided with 88 weapons legally. However, she says that when inquired, a cache of 3,473 weapons had been discovered. Since then, a large number of weapons have been recovered from this vessel anchored in Galle. There are documents over this. 200,000 bullets were found. Is there no allegation over the use of firearms? These are not legal firearms. The Prime Minister says that weapons were not given to Avantgarde legally. He is making a clarification to a question that was raised. However, based on the intervention of the Attorney General, a lawyer informs the Galle Court that there is no evidence to file a case under the Firearms Ordinance or the Explosives Ordinance. This is a serious issue. The lawyers from the Attorney General's department say that this cannot be done under the Prevention of Terrorism Act or the Explosives Ordinance or the Firearms Ordinance. If the Prevention of Terrorism Act does not apply to the place where 3,000 weapons were stored, then they need to be burned to ashes and rubbed on those persons' foreheads. Over 200,000 bullets were discovered from the second vessel in Galle. Does this not fall under the Explosives Ordinance? If a proper investigation is to be carried out and if the law is to be implemented, the first thing to do is to inquire as to whether the payments due to the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the other ports have been settled. Even that is not taking place.
Welcome back to the news. The Voice Against Corruption movement reiterates that the law should be enforced to eradicate corruption, thievery and fraud according to public wishes.
Convener of the Voice Against Corruption movement, Vasanta Samarsingh, arrived at the Anti-Corruption Secretariat today. The FCID and the CID are under the Inspector General of Police. There is a minister in charge of the police. Either the investigations are not taking place or we do not see that the wrongdoers are being punished. There are individuals who have committed large-scale fraud and have obtained ministerial portfolios in the good governance government. Allegations have been levelled against We asked the Attorney General, who instructed the department to not file cases. The AG's department is under the Minister of Justice. If so, the Minister of Justice should be held directly responsible for this. These two departments are under the Prime Minister in the Cabinet. Therefore, the actions of these two individuals are known by the President and the Prime Minister. We charge that the individuals in question have directly intervened to stop the acts of fraud and corruption and thievery from coming to light. We state that the politicians who have intervened and have hampered the actions of the officials of the FCID to enforce the law on the instructions of the IGP should be revealed.
Over in Vanuatu, 14 politicians in the Pacific Island nation have been handed jail sentences for corruption. The members of the parliament were convicted of bribery on the 9th of October when President Baldwin Lonsdale was abroad. In his absence, Parliamentary Speaker Marcelino Pipet used his powers as acting president to pardon himself and the others. On his return, the president overturned the pardons and the Supreme Court has now ruled them unconstitutional.
This could be your child. Let's protect them for the happiness of our children.
Religious leaders today blessed the special pledge that will be made at different locations across the island to mark the awareness campaign for the happiness of our children.
The Sirasa Shakti and Newsfirst team today called on the Mahanayaka of the Askari chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Tibbatuawe Sri Sumangala Thera.
It will not suffice to simply report these matters. We decided there needs to be more discussion and understanding among the adults in society. Such things are happening. You need to create awareness to prevent them. You will be blessed for what you are doing.
After obtaining blessings of the Mahanayaka, the group called on the Anunayaka of the Askari chapter, Most Venerable Vandaruwe Sri Upali Thera, and obtained blessings. Group Director of the Capital Maharaj Organisation Limited, Nidravira Singha, and several others called on His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, the Archbishop of Colombo, and obtained his advice on the campaign for the happiness of our children.
Please bless us to ensure that we fulfill our responsibilities in preparing them for the future.
The Newsfirst team also visited the Sri Vishnu Kovil in Dehivala and obtained blessings. The team called on the chief of the Kovil, Chandrakanthan Kurukkal, and obtained blessings. Later this evening, the Newsfirst team visited the headquarters of the All Ceylon Jamiatul Ulama. The team called on Maulavi Sheikh MMA Mubarak and briefed him on the national pledge and the campaign.
This could be your child. Let's protect them for the happiness of our children. The campaign organised by Newsfirst together with the Ministry of Law and Order and Prison Reform to promote the message of ensuring the security of the nation's children received a large public response in Ratnapura today.
Unparalleled hearts of innocence, weightless on winds, these blossoms dance, blessings you every.
The For the Happiness of Our Children campaign arrived in the town of Ratnapura today, continuing its efforts in spreading the word on how children who will take on the future of this country must be protected. Large crowds rallied in the city, adding strength and confidence to the campaign.
Beyond all kingdoms and above all thrones, the duty to protect them by us must be born.
With no comprehension by the power of love.
We believe that it would be much better if parents did more to protect the children of this country. So I especially extend my gratitude to the Sirasa Media Network for initiating this program. This is a timely requirement. Taking into account the state of affairs surrounding children, protecting them is essential.
Sirasa's efforts here is valuable. Everyone should wake up for this cause. Officials of state and private organizations, veteran organizations, school transportation organizations, as well as many civil organizations extended their voluntary support to this campaign.
Adults should be more thoughtful when it comes to the safety of children. I thank the Sirasa Media Network for implementing an island-wide campaign like this.
We are sad about the current situation, which is why we came here after seeing this on TV. We are heartbroken. We shed many a tear when we see these things. I hope and pray that you get all the assistance you need for this campaign. Adults have a big responsibility in protecting our children. Most of the time these things happen because of negligence. As a nation, we should be disappointed that our future generation is being destroyed. We cannot express our pain in words. We are speaking from the bottom of our hearts. Crowds which gathered in the Ratnapura town for this national cause of securing the future of our children made their voices heard for the entire nation, calling for unity in this common cause.
On to business news tonight. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says that the total earnings from exports in August 2015 reflected a decline of 19.5% year-on-year, showing decreases in all major export categories. The lower earnings from tea, textiles and garments, transport equipment and rubber products mainly contributed to the overall decline in export earnings during the month.
The latest data released by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka notes that in August last year, Sri Lanka's export earnings were $993 million and that figure for August 2015 had dropped to $798 million. Earnings from tea exports in August 2015 declined by 33.9% to $92 million due to the combined effect of low export volumes and prices, and tea export earnings from Russia and the Middle East declined year-on-year. The central bank adds that exports of seafood declined by 41.7% due to a 88.3% decline in seafood exports to the EU market, reflecting the impact of the ban on exports of fisheries products to the EU from Sri Lanka. The central bank goes on to say that earnings from rubber product export declined during the month due to the drop in the exports of rubber tires. The central bank adds that export earnings from textiles and garments, which accounted for half of the exports in the month, declined by 6.6%.
A China-Sri Lanka Cooperation Studies Centre was declared open at the head office of the Pathfinder Foundation in Colombo.
The objective of the centre is to promote the conduct of analytical studies, exchange of experiences and ideas, facilitation of business-to-business and people-to-people relations. The event saw the participation of the founder of the Pathfinder Foundation, Milinda Murugada.
It's an important day for Sri Lanka-China relations as well as for the Pathfinder Foundation because the kind of political support that we need as well as the financial, economic as well as investment assistance that Sri Lanka should receive from China will go a long way in renewing our friendship between the two countries.
We will do our best to support the two governments for strengthening and deepen the cooperation based on our traditional friendship and the lasting cooperation in the past. We are so confident of our future.
That concludes today's edition of Primetime News on News First. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Ramesh Bandara. Good night.